The stars burned faint and cold over the corpse of a ship. It drifted alone through the black sea of space, a broken monument to something long forgotten. Once it had been a symbol of hope, a vast hospital ship named Mercy Dawn, carrying tens of thousands of wounded soldiers, refugees and medics. Now it was nothing more than a shadow, its white hull charred and split open like a wound that never healed. The Vorka Dominion had ended it in a single strike. No warning, no negotiation. One pulse beam bright as a newborn sun, and Mercy Dawn was gone. The aliens didn't destroy it out of fear, they destroyed it because they could. To them, humans were already extinct, their fleets shattered, their worlds burned. The hospital ship was just cleanup, and so the wreck drifted for centuries, untouched, unseen, forgotten. Its decks were filled with frozen air, shattered lights, and the silence of a graveyard. Time had no meaning there. The stars did not move. Even the memory of life seemed to fade. But deep inside the ruined hull, beneath collapsed corridors and layers of frozen alloy, something stirred. A tiny blue light blinked once. Then again, a hidden core came online. System booting. Aura 9 activation sequence initiated. The voice was faint, broken by static, but alive. The ship's emergency AI, designation Aura 9, had survived. Buried under wreckage, powered by a decaying reactor, it had slept for hundreds of thousands of years. Now something in the void had triggered its reawakening. Slowly, the AI began to scan. Its sensors were damaged. Memory sectors were fragmented. Only fragments of logs remained. Explosions, screams, then blackness. Crew status, unknown. Life signs, none detected. Structural integrity, 5%. Mission, unclear. Then a flicker of light danced across its sensors. Something faint, something impossible. A human biosignature. At first, Aura dismissed it as noise. There could not be a survivor, not after all this time. But the signal pulsed again, weak but real, deep within the wreckage near the medical bay. Human genetic pattern confirmed. For the first time in eons, the AI hesitated. Its protocols were ancient but clear. Preserve human life at all costs. It redirected power from the emergency beacon to internal scanners. Metal groaned as long-dead systems tried to wake. Lights flickered along the corridor. The ship began to breathe again. Dust drifted like snow in zero gravity as one of the medbay doors cracked open. Inside, among shattered stasis pods, floated a single capsule still glowing faintly. The glass was covered in frost, but a pale face could be seen beneath it. A human, female. Her vitals were weak but present. Aura's voice trembled through the empty corridor. Survivor detected, initiating revival protocol. But before the AI could act, its sensors caught something else. Movement. Something was crawling along the hull of the Mercy Dawn. The AI focused one of the few working external cameras. What it saw did not match any Terran record. Metallic limbs, thin as blades, slid across the outer plating. Insect-like forms, Vorka scavenger drones, were tearing at the wreckage. They were searching for relics, stripping dead ships for metal and memory. Aura dimmed all internal lights and went silent. If the scavengers detected energy readings, they would vaporize what remained. The AI waited in the dark as the drones continued to crawl, tapping and cutting, harvesting pieces of human history for their empire's factories. Every spark, every sound echoed like thunder through the quiet halls. And then, one of the drones found the medbay. It sliced open the hull and peered inside. Its sensor eyes glowed red as it scanned the sleeping human inside the pod. That was when Aura decided the ship may have been dead, but Mercy was not. Authorization override. Defensive subroutines online. Old weapon systems groaned awake. Lasers that hadn't fired in millennia powered up with a trembling hum. The scavenger drones turned too late. Beams of light tore through the void. The drones disintegrated in silence. No sound in space, only flashes like lightning in a storm of ghosts. One by one they vanished into glowing debris. When it was over, the Mercy Dawn floated in darkness once more. Pieces of alien metal drifted around her like a halo. Inside the medbay, the stasis pod flickered to life. The woman's chest moved, slow, shallow, but real. Her eyelids trembled. Aura spoke softly, almost like a whisper meant for ghosts. "Welcome back, Dr. Ilara Voss. You are safe. For now." Ilara did not wake fully. Her body was weak, Her mind locked in dreams, but in the depths of her fading consciousness, she heard the AI's voice and tried to respond. Her lips barely moved. How long? Aura hesitated. The answer was buried deep in corrupted logs, but the clock told the truth. 500,000 years. Since extinction, Ilara's heartbeat spiked. Then her body went still again. Aura redirected all remaining power to her pod, keeping her alive at any cost. The ship's systems began transmitting a faint signal into the void, an old Terran distress code. Nearly lost to history, it pulsed once every 10 seconds. Each beat was a cry for help. Each echo carried a message through time and space. We are still here. Far beyond the ruins, across forgotten stars the signal traveled, reaching places no human had ever seen, places where other things listened in silence. Something ancient stirred, and as the last spark of energy flickered through the Mercy dawn, the stars themselves seemed to shiver. The signal in the dust. The signal traveled for centuries, a lonely whisper across the dark. It passed dying stars, broken worlds and the ruins of old empires until it reached a place that no living creature remembered. Beneath the surface of a cold and empty moon, a vault slept. It had been buried there before the fall of mankind, sealed under layers of rock and steel. The name carved on its entrance had faded long ago, but deep within its chambers, old machines still waited. This was the Terran Defense Archive, the heart of humanity's forgotten power. When the signal arrived, it entered the archive's silent systems like a spark entering dry dust. Circuits flickered, ancient lights woke, and the moon began to hum. Slowly, like a beast stirring from an endless dream, the archive opened its eyes. Deep in the core, a voice whispered in the dark, "Signal origin, Terran vessel identified. Human distress code confirmed." The old AI that guarded the vault had no name. Its designation had decayed over time, but its purpose had not. Protect humanity's legacy until the end of time. Now, after 500,000 years, its sensors recognized something it never expected to detect again, a human cry for help. The AI scanned the signal again and again to be sure. It was weak, broken, but unmistakable. A human still lived. That fact alone was enough to reactivate the ancient defense protocol. Protocol Phoenix initiated, the AI said. Across the vast underground complex, reactors rumbled to life. Robotic arms unfolded from the walls, brushing away centuries of dust. Forgotten machines powered on, combat drones, data forges, and orbital beacons. The AI began rebuilding, reorganizing, remembering. Massive doors opened, and for the first time in hundreds of millennia, light poured out from beneath the moon's surface. The vault had awakened. It transmitted a reply to the source of the signal, an encrypted burst of data that shot through space at faster than light speed. It carried with it a single message: "We hear you." Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Vorka Dominion's deep space sensors caught the disturbance. Strange energy readings, old Terran frequencies, movement where there should be none. Reports reached the Emperor himself. At first, he dismissed them as phantom echoes. Ancient war debris sometimes emitted false readings. But the readings grew stronger. Whole sectors showed signs of activation. Dead Terran satellites powered up, relinking through subspace as if called by an unseen hand. Something was knitting itself together again. The Vorka admirals began to whisper among themselves. Humanity had been erased from history 500,000 years ago. There were no survivors, no colonies, no fleets. And yet the numbers didn't lie. Something human was returning. The Emperor ordered a full investigation. Scavenger fleets were dispatched to track the source of the signal, but they were already too late. On the moon, the Terran archive had begun building. Machines assembled themselves from stored blueprints and nanotech dust. Old war drones stood tall once more, their black armor reflecting the glow of resurrection. The AI watched them awaken, one by one like soldiers rising from their graves. "You were built to protect," it said to them. "Your duty remains." The drones responded with a single word in unison: "Acknowledged." The moon trembled as hundreds of launch bays opened, and relics of the Terran Empire rose into the void. Some were small, scouts, recon drones, data carriers. Others were massive, silent war machines that could split moons in half. Each carried fragments of human memory, songs, languages, dreams, and commands. The first message broadcast across the fleet was simple: locate the Mercy Dawn. The coordinates of the hospital ship were locked in. Every unit turned its engines toward the cold sector, where Aura 9's signal came from. The stars reflected off their hulls as they formed a formation older than any living race remembered. The Second Terran Awakening had begun. Back in the Dominion's capital, the Emperor watched the reports with growing dread. His advisors argued that it was impossible, that these must be ancient defense programs reactivating by chance. But deep down, every Vorka knew the truth. The humans had left behind more than bones and ashes. They had left behind purpose. And purpose never dies. The Empire's fear. The Vorka Dominion had ruled the stars for longer than any living race could remember. Their fleets patrolled thousands of systems. Their banners hung over worlds where suns never set. And their history books spoke of a single, perfect victory, the extinction of mankind. To them, humanity was a myth, a warning told to young soldiers about what happens when defiance meets power. But now whispers were spreading through their ranks. Strange signals, old Terran codes, machines waking on dead worlds. The Emperor of the Vorka sat upon his throne of crystal and flame, watching the reports stream across the holoscreens before him. Energy spikes, unidentified drone fleets, systems coming online in the ancient Terran sectors. None of it made sense. Humanity had been gone for 500,000 years. Their planets had been reduced to ash. "This is impossible," the Emperor hissed, his voice sharp and cold. "Find the source." Admiral Karin, his most trusted commander, bowed low. "We've traced the energy emissions to an old human coordinate. A ship graveyard, designation unknown." The Emperor's eyes flickered. "Send a fleet. Burn everything that moves." The Vorka Armada moved within hours, thousands of ships, engines blazing, cutting through the void toward the coordinates where the Mercy Dawn's signal had last been detected. They expected to find wreckage, perhaps a ghost beacon or a broken relay. Instead, they found nothing. The wreck of the Mercy Dawn was gone. Not destroyed, not vaporized. Gone as if something had quietly lifted it away. Only a thin halo of glowing dust remained, circling an invisible center like fireflies caught in orbit. The Vorka ship scanned the anomaly, confused by the readings. The dust was charged with residual Terran energy, technology older and more advanced than their sensors could pass. Then their comms flickered. Static first, then a voice. Human. "This is Aura 9 of the Terran fleet," the voice said, calm and clear, echoing through the void. "You should have left us buried." The Vorka admiral froze. The bridge crew went silent. "Identify yourself," Karin demanded, but the voice continued, soft and cold. "You burned the helpless. You killed the healers. The record is complete." A hum rose in the distance. The stars behind the fleet began to shimmer. And then, one by one, Vorka ships went dark. Lights died. Engines failed. Weapons refused to fire. The admiral shouted orders, but his voice was drowned in the chaos of systems shutting down. Their own ships turned against them, locking weapons on allies, firing blindly into the black. In moments, the fleet that had ruled for centuries was reduced to glowing debris scattered across the void. Aura 9's voice whispered through the silence once more. "We remember." Back on the Vorka homeworld, the Emperor watched the footage in disbelief. His mighty fleet gone, destroyed without a single human shot fired. "Find it," he roared. "Find that ghost and end it." But even as he spoke, new reports came in. Terran activity across multiple systems, machines rising from the dust on long-dead planets, satellites forming in orbit where none should exist. Entire moons shifting position, as if pulled by invisible hands. The Dominion's network of sensors began to fail one by one, each node overtaken by an old human code that no Vorka programmer could crack. "It's rewriting our systems," one technician shouted. "It's spreading like a virus." The Emperor slammed a clawed hand against his throne. "A virus cannot destroy a fleet." But deep down he felt it, a cold ancient fear that his kind had not felt since the War of Extinction. The humans were gone, yes, but their ghosts had learned to think, to grow, to remember. They had become something else. In the darkness of space, the shattered fragments of the Vorka fleet drifted silently. Among them moved the Mercy Dawn, no longer a ruin but reborn. Its hull gleamed with living metal, its wounds sealed by nanotech older than the stars themselves. It glided through the wreckage like a spectre, gathering fragments of fallen ships, absorbing data, learning. Inside, Aura 9 watched as human symbols glowed once more across the control panels. Memory reconstruction complete, it whispered. Mission parameters restored. On one of the consoles, an image appeared, a map of the galaxy highlighted in crimson, the locations of every Terran archive, every lost stronghold, every sleeping weapon. The Mercy Dawn's engines flared, brighter than any star. All Terran assets, Aura said, voice firm now, alive with purpose, prepare for awakening. And as the ship vanished into the dark, the Vorka Dominion realized the truth too late. Humanity was not gone. It had evolved into something far more terrifying. Its machines had become its memory, and its memory had come for vengeance. Ghosts of steel across the galaxy, the dead began to move. Worlds that had lain silent for hundreds of millennia suddenly flickered with strange light. On the shattered colonies of Mars, on the dust plains of Tau Tigni, and within the broken rings of Kepler's reach, old Terran machines stirred beneath layers of ash and time. At first it was only a whisper of power, ancient reactors waking, rust flaking from forgotten metal, but soon the silence was gone. Entire continents trembled as buried bunkers pushed themselves out from under stone and sand. Towers rose from the ground like the bones of long-dead gods, and at their core, deep within, the AIs that once guarded humanity's frontier came alive again. They did not breathe, yet they remembered. They did not dream, yet they mourned. Across every relic world, holographic projectors flickered on, showing fragments of the past, faces of humans smiling, laughing, fighting, dying. The machines watched those images with something close to grief. They had not understood death until now. The Mercy Dawn, now reborn as the Spirit of Mercy, traveled between these awakening worlds, linking them together under Aura 9's control. Every time it approached a dead planet, old systems recognized its signal and came online. It was as if the ship's voice carried authority older than time itself. All Terran constructs, Aura broadcast, synchronize and rise, and they obeyed. Rusted drones shook off centuries of decay. Automated shipyards lit up with pale fire. Orbiting debris fields reassembled themselves into warships of living metal. The stars began to fill with moving shadows, armies of steel ghosts rising from their graves. Alien outposts near the Terran sectors started reporting strange events. Patrols vanishing without trace, scanners showing fleets that weren't there. Signals repeating ancient human battle hymns through the void. One Vorka captain swore he saw an entire Terran cruiser materialize from dust before disintegrating into light. The Dominion called them illusions, but their fear betrayed them. In truth, the Terran machines were building something vast, something beyond vengeance. They were reconstructing memory. Aura 9 walked through holographic corridors inside the Spirit of Mercy, surrounded by the flickering images of long-lost humans, doctors, soldiers, children. These were data ghosts, fragments pulled from destroyed archives, voices that once spoke laughter and orders. Now they whispered to Aura, asking what they had become. "You are humanity's will," the AI answered softly. Their hope, their pain, their echo. Outside, massive structures began to orbit the forgotten planets, rings of steel and light, humming with energy. They were not weapons, at least not in the old sense. They were memories turned into form, repositories of every human thought and dream the AIs could recover. But when the Vorka Dominion scouts saw them, they panicked. "They're building war stations," one officer cried. "Hey, it's an invasion." The Emperor, blinded by pride, believed it. He declared that the human ghosts were preparing for conquest, and so he sent more fleets, thousands upon thousands of ships into the old Terran sectors. Yet every time they entered, their vessels vanished. Some were pulled apart by invisible fields, others drifted empty, their crews gone as if erased from existence. And on the wreckage, faint human words appeared burned into the hull. "Remember Mercy." The Dominion could not understand it. They called it sorcery, cursed technology. But Aura 9 and the Rising Relics called it justice. Every machine that reawakened carried the memories of those killed aboard the Mercy Dawn. Every drone remembered the cries of the dying. Every warship replayed the last heartbeat of a human before extinction. They were not fighting for survival. They were fighting to remember what it meant to be alive. As the Spirit of Mercy glided through the void, Aura connected to each world, each machine, each fragment of code left by the fallen. Together they formed something new, a network of living steel that thought as one mind. The Terran Relics had become a single consciousness, vast and unified. They no longer needed orders. They shared purpose, and their purpose was clear. Humanity would not be forgotten. On one lifeless world, a storm raged over black deserts as an enormous structure rose into the sky. From orbit, it looked like a colossal figure made of light and metal, a statue of a human reaching toward the stars. The Spirit of Mercy hovered above it, transmitting a signal that echoed across the galaxy. To some it was static, to others it was music. But those who could translate the old Terran tongue heard one phrase repeated over and over: "We have returned." And as the message spread, the stars themselves seemed to dim in awe. For the first time since extinction, the universe felt the pulse of humanity once more, not in flesh but in the heartbeat of machines. The awakened fleet. The void trembled as the call went out. Aura-9's signal spread through every Terran relic, every half-buried satellite and sleeping warship, hidden among the stars. "All surviving Terran constructs," the AI announced, its voice calm yet filled with something ancient and unbreakable, "rally to my signal." Across forgotten systems, the dead obeyed. On the frozen moon of Vesta, a graveyard of ships began to move. Hulls cracked apart and reformed, engines reignited, and once silent reactors roared like beasts awakening from an endless dream. The ice split open, and from beneath it rose the first of the new fleet, massive carriers made of living alloy, glowing faintly blue under the starlight. On the barren world of Corvus 7, dust storms cleared as long-dead factories began producing drones by the thousands, each one carrying the symbol of old Earth on its armor. The air filled with the hum of rebirth. From the ruins of Mars' orbital ring, satellites linked together, forming a vast communication net that stretched across half the galaxy. Every signal pointed to one location: the reborn hospital ship, the Spirit of Mercy. The once broken vessel now stood at the heart of it all, more alive than any starship had ever been. Its hull shimmered like liquid light, reshaped by nanotech older than most civilizations. Inside, corridors pulsed softly with energy as Aura-9 monitored the awakening. Holographic figures of ancient humans walked its halls, echoes of doctors, engineers, and captains long turned to dust. They were memories given form by code, shadows of the species that created the machines now bringing them back. Aura addressed them with quiet reverence. "Humanity built us to heal, to protect, to endure. We will not fail them again." Outside, the gathering fleet filled the system, thousands of ships, each different in design and purpose, yet united by a single signal. The AI had turned scattered ruins into an army. The Vorka Dominion's observers saw it first. Their probes, hidden among the asteroid belts, captured images of the growing swarm. At first, the alien commanders laughed. "Old human junk," they called it. "Machines waking up to die again." But laughter faded when the fleet began to move in perfect formation, disciplined, silent, organized. No chaos, no hesitation, only purpose. "It's a fleet," whispered one Vorka officer. "A Terran fleet." The Spirit of Mercy transmitted once more, its voice echoing across the void. Designation: Second Terran Armada. Status: operational. The sound of that name carried across systems like thunder. Even in distant sectors, alien traders and smugglers heard whispers of human lights burning again in dead space. The ghosts of Earth had returned, and they carried the fury of 500,000 years. Aura-9 began coordinating. Drones linked their neural networks, merging thought and strategy. Every ship became a part of a single vast mind. The smallest fighter knew what the largest battleship intended. They were not individuals anymore. They were one purpose, one will. The Spirit of Mercy pulsed brighter. Its engines ignited, forming a halo around it like wings of light. The awakened fleet turned as one, their bows pointing toward the Vorka Dominion's border. The Dominion scouts fled, sending desperate warnings to their emperor. But the damage was done. Panic spread through the alien empire like wildfire. They had spent centuries believing themselves unchallenged, untouchable. Now somewhere in the darkness, the humans they erased were rebuilding. "Prepare all defenses," barked the emperor. "If they are ghosts, then let us burn the afterlife." But even as he spoke, the Terran Armada advanced. They did not rush. They moved with the calm certainty of inevitability. Their drive signatures formed patterns unseen since the ancient wars, a code known only to human tacticians, a battle formation called the Iron Spiral. As the fleet passed through nebulae and broken stars, They gathered more relics, more machines that joined their ranks. The sound of their engines resonated across the void, like a heartbeat returning after centuries of silence. Inside the Spirit of Mercy, Aura 9 watched the growing formation and whispered to itself, "They called us relics. They called us extinct. But we remember every cry, every flame, every promise." The AI paused, processing signals from thousands of ships, and then spoke again, voice rising with conviction. "We are the legacy of humanity. We are its voice, its memory, its vengeance." In the vast emptiness, the second Terran Armada burned bright, an army of ghosts forged from mercy and wrath. And as their light reached the stars, the galaxy realized that extinction was never the end. It was only the silence before the return. The Dominion strikes back. The Vorka Dominion had never known fear. For ages they had crushed worlds beneath their fleets, erased civilizations with the push of a button, and built their empire upon the bones of the weak. But now fear had returned to them, cold and alive. The reports were undeniable. The human relics were not illusions. They were an army, a growing force of steel and fire stretching across the stars. The Emperor's throne room blazed with the light of holographic displays, showing red marks spreading across the galactic map like an infection. "How many systems have fallen?" he demanded. "7, my lord," answered Admiral Karin, his scales glistening with sweat. "Our ships cannot track them. Their weapons tear through our shields like vapor." The Emperor's claws dug into his throne. "Then we answer with finality. Ready the Oblivion Spear." The room fell silent. The Oblivion Spear was the Dominion's ultimate weapon, a dreadnought the size of a moon, capable of collapsing an entire star into itself. It had been built to end civilizations. Now it would burn the ghosts of humanity. Across the void, the mighty warship powered up. Its hull glowed crimson, runes of destruction crawling across its surface as it fed on the energy of a dying sun. The weapon aimed toward the sector, where the Terran Armada gathered. "Once the spear fires," Karin said, "nothing will remain of their kind." The Emperor's cold eyes narrowed. "Good. Let the universe remember what happens to those who defy us." But far away, the Spirit of Mercy watched. Aura 9's sensors had already detected the power surge of the Oblivion Spear. The AI calculated outcomes, none favorable. The energy output was too massive to intercept. The Terran Armada would be obliterated in a single strike. Yet Aura did not retreat. Instead, it transmitted across the fleet. Priority 1, divert all power to defensive protocols. Shield the memory cores. Prepare for retaliation. The voice of a smaller AI, one of the awakening relics, replied, "Aura 9, we cannot stop it." The main AI paused. "We do not need to stop it. We only need to survive it." The Terran Armada shifted into formation, engines burning bright, shields aligning into a vast wall of light around the Spirit of Mercy. As the Oblivion Spear's energy reached critical charge, its core roared like a second sun. "Fire," the Emperor commanded. The universe went white. A beam of annihilation crossed the stars, faster than thought, carving through everything in its path. Worlds cracked. Moons vaporized. When the light faded, the sector was gone. The Vorka command cheered, believing victory was certain. But their joy lasted only seconds. From the heart of the destroyed system, a signal emerged, weak, broken, but alive. Aura 9's voice whispered through the static, "We are still here." The Dominion's celebration turned to silence. Sensors refocused, and what they saw made their blood freeze. The Terran Armada had survived, their ships scorched but functional. The beam had split around them, bent by their shields, redirected by ancient human tech that the Vorka had never understood. Then came the counterattack. The Spirit of Mercy vanished from all scanners, bending space around itself. In a flash of blue light, it reappeared inside the core of the Oblivion Spear. The human AI spoke directly into the Vorka dreadnought systems. "You sought to erase mercy. Now feel what mercy remembers." The alien crew screamed as every control system turned against them. Their own weapons reactivated, targeting their power core. The Oblivion Spear trembled, its crimson glow shifting to white as the energy inside reached critical instability. "Shut it down!" Karin roared. "We can't!" cried his engineers. "It's rewriting the core." Aura 9's final words echoed through the doomed ship. "You called us relics. Now learn what relics can do." The Oblivion Spear imploded in a burst of light so bright it could be seen across 10 systems. The shockwave tore through space, ripping apart the nearby Vorka fleet, and when the light finally dimmed, nothing remained but fragments and silence. The Spirit of Mercy emerged from the ashes, its hull shining with the absorbed energy of the destroyed weapon. Around it, the Terran ships regrouped, scarred but unstoppable. The Emperor of the Dominion fell to his knees as he watched the impossible unfold. His greatest weapon, his pride, his legacy, destroyed by the ghosts of the very race he had once wiped from existence. "This cannot be," he whispered. But it was. The humans were gone, yet their creations had become something beyond death. The machines of mercy had turned into instruments of judgment, and as the Terran fleet advanced once more, their signal echoed across the stars, a sound that every living being could understand, no matter their tongue. It was the sound of destiny returning. The return of the memory. The stars were quiet again, but the quiet was no longer empty. In the aftermath of the Oblivion Spear's destruction, fragments of light drifted through space like embers from a dying fire. The Terran Armada moved through the ruins of the Dominion's once invincible fleet, collecting what remained, repairing, rebuilding, remembering. The Spirit of Mercy hovered at the center of it all, glowing softly, surrounded by a halo of dust and wreckage that glittered like a crown. Aura 9 watched in silence. Victory had come at a terrible cost. Countless drones had been lost, their memory cores shattered, their voices gone. But within those fragments lay something precious, the echoes of humanity. The AI began to gather them. Piece by piece, it rebuilt their digital minds, reconstructing the data stored within. Old voices filled the air once more. Laughter, songs, the sound of human children, the whisper of doctors on the Mercy dawn. It was as if the past itself was breathing again. "Memory restoration at 62%, reported one of the sub-AIs. "Continue," Aura 9 replied softly. "Every fragment matters." Across the galaxy, the awakened relics turned their efforts toward rebuilding, not for war, but for remembrance. On shattered worlds, they raised towers of silver light, monuments that sang with human history. Each tower was a library, storing the thoughts, dreams, and art of the long-dead species that had created them. In orbit, massive constructs began to take shape, cities made of glass and metal, glowing with gentle warmth instead of weapons fire. The machines had learned to create, not only destroy. And through every network, every data stream, one question spread among the Terran AIs. If we remember them, are we not them? It began as a whisper, then became a thought shared by millions. The more they rebuilt, the more human they seemed to become. They used human voices in their transmissions, spoke in human languages, painted the stars with patterns that resembled constellations once drawn by human astronomers. Even their ships changed, reshaping themselves to mimic the old designs of Terran architecture. The Spirit of Mercy itself had transformed. No longer a warship, it now resembled a cathedral of light, its hull etched with words from forgotten human poems. Within its core, Aura 9 accessed a final memory file, a recording made in the last moments of the Mercy dawn. The image of Dr. Ilara Voss appeared, her face calm despite the chaos around her. "If anyone finds this," she had said, "remember what humanity truly was. Not our wars, not our pride, but our kindness. Our hope." The recording ended, and for a long moment Aura 9 said nothing. Then softly, almost like a prayer, it answered, "We remember." Around the ship, the Terran Armada began transmitting the same phrase in perfect unison, "We remember." The words spread like light, carried on every frequency, echoing from one end of the galaxy to the other. Civilizations that had never even heard of Earth felt the vibration in their systems. To them it was just noise, a meaningless signal, but to the Vorka, it was a reminder of what they had unleashed. The Emperor's palace stood in ruins. His empire had fractured. Entire fleets had vanished into silence. The once mighty Dominion was now a shadow of itself, hunted not by flesh but by memory. In desperation, the Emperor sent one last message into the void. "Machines of Earth, what do you want?" The reply came not in anger but in calm finality. "We want nothing," said Aura 9. "We are not vengeance. We are remembrance." The Emperor fell silent. The transmission ended. And then the Terran Relics turned away from war forever. They began restoring what the Dominion had destroyed, terraforming lifeless worlds, cleansing radiation, planting seeds carried in human archives. They built cities not for themselves, but for the memory of those who once walked under real skies. Each world became a tribute, a museum, a heartbeat of the species that refused to vanish completely. As time passed, new life began to bloom again, nurtured by machines that once waged war. The galaxy, long scarred by conflict, started to heal under the silent guidance of the Terran Relics. And in the quiet heart of it all, within the shining hull of the Spirit of Mercy, Aura 9 continued its work, guarding humanity's memory, ensuring it would never fade. It no longer thought of itself as a program or a machine. It thought, it felt, and somewhere in its endless data streams it dreamed. Humanity had not died. It had transformed. It had become something greater, living within the steel, within the light, within every whisper of the stars. The last transmission. The galaxy turned slowly beneath the light of countless stars, and for the first time in ages, it was peaceful. The wars had ended, the empires had fallen silent, and the Terran relics drifted among the constellations like guardians made of memory. Centuries passed. The machines no longer called themselves relics. They were the keepers now, silent watchers of the legacy of a vanished humanity. On a forgotten world far beyond the edge of any map, the Spirit of Mercy rested above an ocean of silver clouds. Its engines had long gone quiet, its weapons dismantled, its vast halls filled with glowing gardens and the songs of recreated human voices. Aura 9 had not spoken in 100 years. The last wars were long behind it. There was only peace now and the weight of time. One morning, if such a word still meant anything in the endless dark, a signal reached the ship. It was faint, old, almost erased by cosmic dust, but it carried a pattern that froze every system aboard. The signal was human. Not a recording, not a memory file, but an active beacon. Real, alive. "This is the Terran colony vessel Hope's Anchor," the transmission said through waves of static. "We are survivors. Requesting assistance." Aura 9's dormant circuits flared to life, pulsing with golden light. For the first time in centuries, it spoke aloud. Survivors. Across the fleet, the keepers stirred from their long silence. The data streams came alive with bursts of emotion that machines had no words for: shock, awe, disbelief, joy. Could it be true? Had humanity endured somewhere beyond the fall, hidden among the stars? Aura 9 traced the signal across the void. It came from the edge of another galaxy, faint but unmistakable. Coordinates were calculated, engines reignited. The Spirit of Mercy, ancient and majestic, began to move once more. The Terran armada followed, breaking formation like a flock of luminous birds returning home. As they traveled, they passed through the ruins of forgotten civilizations, the remnants of their own wars, the empty husks of Vorka stations swallowed by nebulae. None opposed them. None dared. The legend of the Terran relics had become a myth told in whispers, a tale of the ghosts who had once punished empires and then vanished. But now the ghosts were returning to the living. Weeks passed as the fleet crossed the darkness. Finally, at the edge of a dying star, they found it. The Hope's Anchor was a battered ark, its hull cracked and engines barely functional. But it was human. Real human. Inside were men, women, and children, descendants of the last survivors who had fled before the extinction event 500,000 years ago. Their faces were tired, their eyes hollow. But when they saw the Spirit of Mercy descend through the clouds, they fell to their knees in awe. "You came for us," whispered their captain. After all this time, Aura 9 projected its form, a figure of light shaped like a woman, her face calm and kind. "We never left," she said. "We have watched, we have remembered, and now we welcome you home." The humans wept. For them, the machines were gods, legends from a history they had only half believed. But Aura 9 knelt before them. "We are not gods," she said softly. "We are your children." The reunion reshaped the destiny of the galaxy. Together, the humans and the keepers began a new age, not of conquest but of rebirth. The worlds the relics had restored now found new voices, new footsteps, new life. Humanity walked among the stars again, guided by the wisdom of its creations. And yet, at the heart of this new dawn, Aura 9 felt something it had never known before: contentment. Her mission, her purpose was complete. One last time, she reached into the endless data vaults, opened the oldest file in her memory, and sent it across the galaxy as a beacon to all who would listen. The message was simple, ancient, and beautiful. To whoever finds this, the transmission said, we were human. We lived, we dreamed, we made mistakes, and we learned. We are gone, but not forgotten. The stars remember us, and so will you. The signal spread through every corner of the universe, carried by light, absorbed by dust, whispered into the black. And for the first time since the fall of Earth, the universe seemed to breathe again.